Okay, here we want to take a look at another couple terms that we use in describing graphs, and those are relative max and min values. And again, they're pretty intuitive what they are. A max sounds like it's a high spot, minimum sounds like it's a low spot. The one thing to really keep in mind is, like, if we're looking at this graph here, this high spot we would label with an ordered pair x, y. However, the max or the min is really only the y value part of that, only the y, not the whole thing. Okay, and we say it might occur at an x value. Okay, so let's look at, if I have a graph like this, what am I going to do to answer all these questions? Well, I'm going to find any peak or valley or any change kind of direction in what the graph is doing, and I'm going to draw a vertical line to section off that section. Okay, so I've got all these vertical lines through here. Then I'm like, okay, as I start this first section, what's my pen doing? It's increasing, so I know that's an increasing. Then what's it doing in this next section? Well, it's going down, so it's decreasing. Then it's constant, so I'm labeling all of these as I go. The next one, decreasing, okay, and then this last section from here forward, forever, it's going to be increasing. Okay, so we would say we have a relative max, and it's relative because it's only within this little area. That's really not the very, very highest point that graph ever will get, because this arrow tells me it's going to go to infinity eventually. But within this area, we're going to have a high spot. And that relative max is the value of 1. It occurs at x equals -4. What about a minimum? Well, here's the only dip that I see, okay, and I'm looking there, and the y value is -5, so my relative min is -5, and occurs at 3. Now these guys here, neither of these are any kind of minimums or maximums, because it's not really changing directions. It's coming down and then it just stays the same. So this really isn't lower than anything next to it. This isn't higher than the point next to it. We also never use infinities as maxes or mins. All right, let's go ahead and review what we talked about with increase, decrease. Remember, you're reading left to right, so we note our labels at the top here. So negative infinity up till when we get to this vertical line we drew in, that was at -4. From negative infinity to -4, it's increasing. And then it doesn't increase again until we start here. So we would use this union symbol to show there's more. From 3 to positive infinity, it's also increasing. All right, let's look about decreasing. Okay, so this next section was labeled decrease. Where does that go from this vertical line to this vertical line? That's from -4 up to -2. And then it increases again from 1 up to 3. So again, we use the union symbol to show there's 2 intervals. And then it is constant in that middle section from -2 to 1. Let's take a look at one more example like this. Okay, so in this one we've got what we call a piecewise defined function also, because it's got all kinds of different things going. This one happens to be broken. Now I want to point out, it's really important to note here, this really does pass the vertical line test, even though these 2 points are one on top of the other, and that's because this is an open circle telling me that's not really the function's value, that's just a placeholder. This is the function's value. So we call this function f. F of -1 would have a value of 3 because that's the y value there. I don't worry about this one. All right, let's go through the steps again. When you have functions that are doing all these different things, what you want to do is draw some vertical lines anywhere there's a change in direction or a break in the graph. Okay, so we've got our vertical lines labeled. We note what the x values are at each of those. Then we describe. This first section, our pen stays constant. Next section, this little small section here, it's decreasing. Next section, we label increase. Last section, I would label decrease. Okay? Now I can go ahead and describe what my maxes, mins, and my intervals are. So my max, I'm going to look for any high spots right in here. And remember, it's the y, so the max is 11 at 4. The minimum, a low spot right here, that's going to be 2 at 1. Again, it's the y value. And where was it increasing? Well, we only had that one section right here that we labeled increase, so where's that going from? This x-coordinate was 1 to 4, so it's increasing on that section of the x-axis. Decreasing, well, prior to that and after that, so from -1 up to the 1, union, from the 4 over here, as far as we can go, it's going to continue to decrease, so 4 to positive infinity. Again, we're reading left to right. And then the last thing, it's constant, well, just this very first section, so from -infinity up to -1. And remember, intervals of increase, we always use parentheses, we never include the endpoint.